You may have seen, most of you have probably seen 2012 Enigma, which is a video of mine I'm proud to say was #1 most viewed on Google December 1st of last year. And the reason why it got that way is because the information has rocked the internet. It has led to my getting the starring position on a sci-fi documentary coming out in November on Sci-Fi Network. It's led to Penguin contacting me to write a book based on the video, one of the biggest publishing companies out there. It's led to my working with, I'm going to say this now publicly, Jim Hart, who wrote the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. That's our screenwriter. Thank you. I'm working on Wander Awakening, which is the album cover you see here in the slide, with a 9-time Grammy-winning musician, Larry Sire. The reason why all this big talent and why all this attention is being focused here is not because I may have been somebody else in another lifetime. It's not because I have done psychic readings. It's not because I put prophecies on the internet that later were shown to come true. The biggest thing that I bring to the planet right now is to simply look at ancient prophecies that we know to exist, that we can document in great detail, and to then give a scientific framework for these prophecies on such an advanced level that we're looking at things in an entirely different way. So let's get back to 2012 Enigma for a minute. Most of you have seen that video. You may remember that I discuss an experiment that was conducted in which a tiny, what's called buckyball, was shot through a grating, and the grating is 100 nanometers wide. The buckyball itself is only about 1 or 2 nanometers wide. It goes through the grating and it turns into a wave. The buckyball itself, which is supposed to be a macroscopic object, goes through this little slit, and for whatever reason it turns into a non-local wave. Now again, I talked about the experiment where buckyballs are shot through a 100 nanometer grate, a little tiny slit. They turn into a wave just by hitting the grate. It's like it makes them flip inside out and go from space-time, where they're a particle, into time-space. That solid particle, which has 120 atoms in it, it's not just like some tiny little thing. It's a ball. It's got structure. It's got form. It's got shape. It literally popped out of our space-time entirely. It flipped over into a realm where time is 3-dimensional, space is 1-dimensional, and it smears out. It's partly in the past, it's partly in the present, it's partly in the future. And in that state, it looks like a wave because you can't measure where everything is anymore. So now get a load of this. The DNA molecule is only slightly wider than a buckyball, which means the DNA molecule is also subject to quantum effects, in which the molecules within your DNA are phasing between being here in space-time and being in time-space, where they actually are stretched out through linear time. And they're sensitive to all the other energy fields around them.
As you know, the title of my book is The Soul Genome, Science and Reincarnation. The soul genome is an effort to expand the traditional notion of the soul as a sort of a spiritual organism. But in science, it's not very useful to say we're talking about the soul genome, because that has such connotations that vary depending on the belief systems of people. Ian Stevenson, the psychiatrist who really is the dean of scientific research and reincarnation, near the end of his life reached the point where he said, I don't know that I can really say this proves reincarnation, but there has to be some container, some mechanism that carries forward all of these memories and these physical features from one life to the other. And so he chose the word psychophore, which in Greek means the container of the psyche. And he said, this container must carry all this information forward. When we did our meta-analysis of the cases, we discovered that we were talking about more than just a container. We were talking about a container with real factors included in it, real DNA patterns, real personality traits, real mental levels of development that we could correlate with IQ and other measures of our mental development.
Of course, it goes without saying that for those of you who haven't seen this, when they haven't seen it before, there's a gasp in the audience, but you all are well initiated. Edgar Cayce and myself, there's obviously a facial similarity there. This is my brother and Casey's first guy, Dr. Ketchum, who got him out there in the world. My father, after a Metallica concert, that's why he's sneering. And the Squire, Edgar Cayce's father. My father would only shop at the Squire shop, and everybody called Cayce's father the Squire. This is my best friend Jude and Edwin Blumenthal from the Cayce tradition, one of his principal investors. Jude and I did marvelous music together in high school, at least we thought so at the time. And this is my friend from college, Christopher, and his corresponding reincarnation, Morton Blumenthal. This is my good friend from college, Angelica, and this is Edgar's wife, Gertrude. These are like the only people I'm still in contact with from high school and college. I mean, you have to understand, these are not just random people from my life. These are like some of my closest associates and friends. And then when you find out that they're the same people as in Edgar's circle, it's very, very surprising.
He chose the word psychophore, which in Greek means the container of the psyche, and he said, this container must carry all this information forward. When we did our meta-analysis of the cases, we discovered that we were talking about more than just a container. We were talking about a container with real factors included in it, real DNA patterns, real personality traits, real mental levels of development that we could correlate with IQ and other measures of our mental development. So I used a word which is a little bit different from Ian Stevenson, psychoplasm, which connotes the same idea that there is a container of the psyche, but that it has these various factors, which is really analogous to a cell. We have a cell with a membrane, and in the membrane you have the mitochondrial DNA, you have the Y chromosomes, you have the organelles, you have all of the parts of the cell that we read about in our biology textbooks. And so the cytoplasm, from our theoretical point of view, contains the same analogous components that shape not only the physical body, but the personality of the individual. The genome that we have so much publicity about today that comes to us from our parents is not the same in all details as the soul genome, which is the concept that we use, and we use the scientific term psychoplasm, because it involves something greater than the physical chromosomes that are passed to us from our parents. And when you see variations in the current genome of an individual born of a mother and a father who are of a particular race or cultural orientation, the child may very well have features that are not part of that same genome that the parents passed on. And we say, where did that come from?